Thinking of moving to Medicine Hat? Before you pack the U-Haul and buy a house, here's what you need to know about this great community. What's up, guys? My name's Ryan Werre with eXp Realty. I help families, newcomers, and relocation people find that perfect family home in this great Medicine Hat community and surrounding area. In this video, I want to go through the pros and cons of living in Medicine Hat, the things to expect, and also the cost of living. One of the major perks about coming to Medicine Hat is that housing is very affordable when in comparison to other big centers like Calgary or other communities in Alberta, whether it be Lethbridge, Coaldale, Edmonton, cities of that size. What I'm going to show you here on my screen is the average sale price for a detached home in Medicine Hat in the past decade. You'll see on the chart that it is very much an incline, especially in the past 5 or 6 years. But right now for a detached home, and again, this is average price. We can get into what a family home looks like in a little bit more detail here. But an average home that's detached is $432,000. Yes, that has went up in the past few years, so as most of Canada has went up as well. When I look at other bigger cities in Alberta, for example, Edmonton and Calgary, a detached home is significantly more money. In Calgary, you're looking at around $800,000 for a detached home. Edmonton, around $570,000. And this obviously coming from chat, as you can see on my screen here. So when people come to Medicine Hat, they see detached homes like a solid family house at a significant discount from other centers in Alberta. And if you're coming to Alberta or coming to Western Canada, in my opinion, Medicine Hat is the best bang for your buck when it comes to a detached home. Even if you group together the average sale price in the entire community, it's still at about $375,000 in Medicine Hat. And again, when I have people come to Medicine Hat, start to shop for real estate, whether it be a detached home, condo, or other, they see things, especially if they're coming from a bigger center from Ontario or BC, they think it's a fire sale. They're like, wow, I cannot believe how good of a deal we can get on a property. So that is primarily what has pushed that average sale price up. I do anticipate in 2026 values to kind of level off. I don't think they're going to continue on this steep incline like they have been. And I also don't think the market is going to adjust much at all. If you want to take a look at specific family homes under $550,000, I've actually put a link in the description below that's going to take you to a curated listing search that will only show you those types of homes, just so you can get a feel of what is actually selling right now or what properties are listed for. That's a really solid home. And what I would encourage you to do is go to other centers in Alberta and just compare those similar properties. You will find that Medicine Hat, you will get way more house for a cheaper price than other communities in Alberta. Now, if you're new to Medicine Hat or you've never been to the city, I want to give you an overview of the different neighborhoods and the different communities that are surrounding Medicine Hat that you may not be aware of, that I think are really good fits for people that want to maybe live just outside city limits. And I also want to dive into the different areas of town, whether it be north or south Medicine Hat, to where there's certain amenities that might be to your liking, so that when you do come to Medicine Hat, at least you have a lay of the land, if you will. So the South Saskatchewan River divides Medicine Hat up into kind of the north portion, as we say, and the south portion. Now, Medicine Hat primarily 100 years ago when it was starting to develop, they obviously built a lot of the downtown core around the river, and also this surrounding area were some of the first homes in Medicine Hat. If you can see my cursor here, this area right here is what we call the southeast and southwest hill, and as well as downtown. You can see all the industrial buildings there. Now, downtown, the city of Medicine Hat has put a premium, or I would say a focus on reinvigorating and bringing businesses to the downtown core. That's probably for a separate video. But on the southeast and southwest hill, you'll find a lot of character homes. A lot of niche buyers will cater to the hill because that's basically the only part in town. There's certain other smaller areas where you can get those character homes, those 100-year-old homes, those beautiful big brick 2 stories that people have renovated and kept up and tried to basically bring those back from 100 years into present time. There's a lot of beautiful homes. Now, you do have to be a bit careful, if I'm being honest, with the Southeast and Southwest Hill. There's certain areas, especially closer to downtown, that can be a little bit sketchy. And also these properties here, you have to be at least more aware of how structurally sound they are, just because they are older properties. To the east here a little bit, still south of the river, is what we call the river flats. Now, when the South Saskatchewan River flooded about 15 years ago, there was a lot of flooding in this region in the flats. When you drive through the flats, it is completely level, and you can see how if the river does flood, these can be a little bit exposed. Now, what the city did after the flood was built a massive berm around this area here, kind of where Athletic Park is, and over to Strathcona, which is a beautiful nature park. But that's just something to be aware of. A lot of cheaper homes in this area as well. Now, if you go to north of the river, this is kind of what we call Crescent Heights. There's a mixture of kind of mid 60s to these homes in this area. And then also the city has developed a few more areas here in the last decade. The Ranchlands area here, and then a beautiful development over here in Ranch View, Ranchman Crescent as well. So there's a mixture of price points in here, a lot of schools. They have the Big Marble Go Center, which is a big leisure center with a big workout area, a pool. I am basically frequenting the Big Marble Go Center almost on a daily basis. It is an amazing facility that the city has kept up really well. Now, if you head further south, this has been where I would say the focus of growth has been in the city for the last 25 to 30 years. Rossglen, Crestwood, those are all great family home areas, and also primarily where the majority of shopping is located is in the south part of town. You have Southlands area here and also Southridge. Again, mixture of newer developments in the Southlands area. Southridge was primarily developed in the 90s, and like the further south you go in town, the newer the homes are going to be, as a rule of thumb. Now, what's interesting, when you look at the entire landscape of Medicine Hat and the growth, you can see here that South Boundary Road runs basically from east to west through the whole city. It kind of curves off here. But the city has maxed out growth in their own land, if you will, on the south part of town. If you hopped across South Boundary Road, you are no longer in city limits. This is actually Cypress County. So what the city, from my understanding, is doing is trying to push more new development kind of north of Crescent Heights. The city owns kind of all this land. There's some private land there as well. But from my understanding, reading up on things following city growth, they're going to push newer development more to the north. And that's naturally going to bring in more shopping centers, more amenities as well. Now, if you live in Crescent Heights and you want to head to, say, Walmart, which is kind of in the Southlands area, you're looking at about a 10 to 15 minute drive. And if you're coming from a bigger center, you're probably going to chuckle and say, well, that's not hardly a drive at all. And I would agree with you. Now, if you've lived in Medicine Hat for a very long time, you may find it a little bit inconvenient to drive across town to get to Walmart. But in my opinion, getting anywhere from town takes you no longer than 20 minutes on a busy day, which there's hardly any traffic, if I'm being completely honest. Now, you'll find in the north part of town as well, they have this Briar Industrial Estates. That's a lot of industrial buildings, and then they also have Costco out here. There's a keg, there's the Co-op Place where the Medicine Hat Tigers play. So you can see that the city is trying to put some focus on the north part of town. Now, development is quite slow just because the city growth is quite stagnant and quite slow as well. In my opinion, one of the major factors with that is that when people come into town, they're not really thinking of building a new house, because building a new house is going to cost substantially more than what they could buy a nice two-story family home for, which is around $480,000 to $520,000. So they're like, well, why would I build for $700,000 or $800,000 when I can buy a house that's 10 years old for literally, almost half that price? Now, some other centers that you may not be aware of is the town of Redcliffe is just northwest of the city. They're almost connected at this point, but Redcliffe is where I grew up and currently live. And Red Cliff's a great little town. Taxes are a little bit cheaper than Medicine Hat, and there's a lot of good, solid first-time homes, as well as some very nice, beautiful homes around the Red Cliff golf course. So Red Cliff's a good option. If you are just starting your search in Medicine Hat, definitely keep an eye on Red Cliff as well, and include that in your search when you do come to look for homes. Dunmore is what we call kind of a hamlet of Medicine Hat. It is not in city limits, and it's in Cypress County, but there are a lot of larger sized properties, anywhere from, you know, 0.4 of an acre to a full acre. There's a lot newer development here, more kind of custom builds, a lot of beautiful, beautiful homes here, and that drive to town is only a couple minutes as well. So if you're looking for more of a acreage style, but not out of the city very far, Dunmore is a good option. I would say, rule of thumb, you won't see a ton of listings come up in Dunmore, and you're going to be at a higher price point, no doubt about it, when you're looking in Dunmore, just because of the size and the nature of the property. Another great little community is Desert Bloom. Desert Bloom is notorious for more higher end homes. Development was started in 2006, and they're just finishing out, kind of pushing south here. Newer homes, there's still some new builds here, but prices can push north of $1 million here. If you're buying an older, quote, older home in Desert Bloom, going to be $700,000 to $900,000 in kind of that 2010 era. So if you are in a higher price point, include Desert Bloom in your search as well. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a lay of the land, if you will, of Medicine Hat. Just keep in mind, the river is beautiful. There's a lot of walking trails, biking paths. There's a lot of, I would say, outdoor activities to take advantage of when you come to Medicine Hat. And in my opinion, it's one of the most outdoor friendly cities that I have either visited or lived in. It seems like you can drive 10 minutes to anywhere and you're either going to find a beautiful walking trail around the South Saskatchewan River or in the coulees. In Red Cliff, there's some of the best biking trails in Western Canada along these coulees here, and they've done a great job of developing a trail system that runs all the way through these coulees. You kind of pass the golf course, and you can even get into Medicine Hat directly if you're on your bike. So a lot of benefits to Medicine Hat, and if you haven't noticed yet, yes, I am absolutely biased with Medicine Hat. I was born and raised in Medicine Hat, and I think it's a great community to raise a family in because you're not fighting a bigger city, you're not fighting traffic. The school systems are great. There's a Catholic division, a public school division, and you can easily research any of that online as well. Another big pull to Medicine Hat is that it is, quote, the sunniest city in Canada. And I always laugh and kind of joke that Medicine Hat is kind of the desert of Alberta. I can't tell you the number of times where I'll drive to Calgary for something, whether it be a golf tournament or visiting friends, and it is like 10 to 15 degrees colder in Calgary all the time, especially in the summer. We can get quite warm and dry in the summer, and that attracts a lot of retirees to Medicine Hat, where they want more sunshine, they want warmer conditions, a warmer climate, a drier climate. And in terms of, if you're looking at communities in Alberta, you're going to get way warmer conditions and a lot more stable conditions through the winter. Yes, it gets cold here just like it does everywhere in Canada in the winter months, but it's not as bad. If you get to Calgary or north, you're going to be in for long, cold winters. And if I'm being completely honest, the spring times are not great in those other communities as well. I'm a big golfer, and we get basically an extra month of golf season at the beginning of the season, and then we also extend further as well as any other community in Alberta. Those are basically the benefits of Medicine Hat, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't also highlight some of the cons or some of the issues from living in Medicine Hat. My biggest pet peeve personally is that the airport is not that large and there's not many flights going out of the Medicine Hat Regional Airport. There's only a couple of flights, 1 to 2 flights a day, and they only go to Calgary. So if you need to get anywhere in the States, or if you're flying to the West Coast, East Coast, anywhere that you would like to go for maybe a vacation, more times than not, you have to drive to Calgary. because the Medicine Hat Airport is not that reliable and the flight times are very limited. The other downside or the con to living in Medicine Hat is if you do not like the wind, it is fairly windy here, especially in the shoulder seasons, whether that be in April or like right now, kind of in that October, November when the change of season comes. It is fairly breezy. So if you're a golfer like me, it does drive you a little bit nuts at times, but that's also something that just comes with that warmer climate as well. So it's a bit of a give and take. Now, the other con that I think is important in highlighting is the stagnation of growth in the city when you look at just population. In the last 10 years, I'm just looking at a chart here. In 2012, the estimated population in Medicine Hat was about 61,000. And 2024, we are only at 68,000. So there's not much growth year over year in Medicine Hat. Now, I do think over the next decade that will change. But I think the city has a lot of work to do in terms of bringing in industries and higher paying jobs to Medicine Hat. I know when I was growing up, it was branded as an oil and gas city. You know, there's a lot of, I would say, baby boomers that had an entire career in Medicine Hat in the oil and gas industry. And that's why the growth of Medicine Hat primarily happened in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. And just with the way of that industry, it seems like more communities that not already have oil and gas, and there is agriculture around Medicine Hat, but it's not as predominant as maybe say Lethbridge is. So I think the city has some work to do in terms of rebranding itself to bring in other industries that will obviously bring in more jobs. And I think that's going to happen in order to see really those new development areas, whether it's kind of that north of Crescent Heights up into that River Valley a little bit more, start to really fill out and develop. Because in my opinion, the average sale price of a resale house still needs to increase to entice people to build instead of just buy. That, coupled with the influx of people coming to Medicine Hat, or more primarily retirees right now. I know I've relocated dozens and dozens of people from BC and Ontario that get to retire about a decade early because they get to sell their inflated asset of a house for $1.2 million. They're coming to Medicine Hat, buying the same house at basically a reduced cost of 50 or 60%, and they're getting to retire early, which is fantastic. I think that's a great benefit and an asset to Medicine Hat. But I also do believe Medicine Hat needs to attract younger families, younger professionals into the community in order for that population to really take off. So I hope that gives you a good lay of the land of Medicine Hat. And what I would encourage you to do, in the description below, I send out a bi-monthly email with value like this: insights into neighborhoods, stats on the actual Medicine Hat market. What is going on? Are values coming up? Are values dropping? What's the hottest neighborhoods in Medicine Hat? So if you just click on that link, you can enter in your email. I'm going to send you bi-monthly updates on what's happening in Medicine Hat. Also, like I mentioned earlier in this video, there's going to be a link. If you want to check out family homes and you want to compare to other centers, just click on that link. It'll take a custom curated listing search for you, and it's going to show you what a family detached 2-story home looks like in Medicine Hat. So that'll save you a bunch of time. And as always, if you're thinking of coming to Medicine Hat or moving or have questions, reach out to me. My direct cell is 403-548-0813. That's my direct cell. I'm available all the time. If you have any questions, just reach out. Take good care.